In today's video, I'm bringing back Commenter Day by building Habitable, Corruption, and Crimson Biomes. Greetings friends, Khaios here. Welcome to the first Commenter Day in quite a while. What is Commenter Day? It's a video series that I make once a month where I build the top comments build request. So leave a comment in today's video with your request for next month's Commenter Day video. If somebody makes a request that you really want to see me build, be sure to like their comment and reply to help boost it. A few weeks ago, I made a community post to kickstart Commenter Day asking you all for your requests. The top comment, as of the time of recording this, comes from Benny, who requests that I build Habitable, Corruption, and Crimson Biomes. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. Let's talk about the build request. Benny specifically says to build a corruption that maintains the feel of a corruption. This means that I'm not just going to be cleansing the corruption biome, though I do need to make it habitable. As I'm sure you all know, while you can set a bed and a spawn point at a house that's built into the Crimson or the Corruption, you cannot move NPCs into that biome. Today, I'm going to be attempting to build Crimson and Corruption biomes that look like they fit the theme, but they're actually perfectly cleansed and NPCs will be willing to live within them. We've got a lot of work to do today, so let's get started by taking a look at the materials that I'm going to be using to imitate these biomes. Let's start with the corruption. The first thing to keep in mind is that this habitable area that I will be building today will not actually be a corruption biome. So the lighting and the background will be forest, not corruption. I could just make a resource pack that turns the forest background into the corruption, but I'd rather challenge myself today by pulling off this feel without any resource shenanigans. Though I really do love me some shenanigans. Regardless, let's take a look at the blocks. The primary blocks in the corruption are dirt, ebon stone, and corrupt grass. I will not be able to make perfect replications, but I can get it somewhat close. Starting with the grass, I'll be using purple paint on either normal, hallow, jungle, or mushroom grasses. In terms of color, the closest match is actually going to be mushroom grass, but that comes with some drawbacks. It's on mud, which I can live with, and it glows, which I can also live with, but it doesn't grow tall grass, and you can't get normal trees on it, only mushrooms and mushroom trees. So I'm not going to be using it despite the colors matching pretty closely. The remaining grasses don't match the corrupt grass as closely, but I think they're better picks due to the trees and tall grass. They're all pretty identical when it comes to purple. Hallow's a little bit better, but I think I'm going to go with normal grass as it doesn't have the sparkles that hallowed grass does, and it doesn't have the mud that the other two have. Next up is ebonstone. I experimented with a lot of different block options off camera for a while to see which was the closest match. I've settled on desert fossil with purple paint. It's a bit more saturated than ebonstone and it stands out a bit in the forest biome. However, I do have an idea to address that and bring them to a closer match, but I'm going to save that for later in the video. So with the blocks picked, let's take a look at the decorations. The trees are going to be a slight issue. Ebon trees have a grayish purple body with purple leaves. When it comes to trying to make normal trees look like ebon trees, I can either paint the leaves purple or I can paint the bark gray. I really can't do both. The leaves are attached to the branches. If I paint them purple, the wooden part remains brown. If I paint the rest of the tree gray, those little brown segments look really distracting. So instead of just painting normal trees, it looks like I will be building custom trees today. Moving on, I'm not going to be able to get corruption thorns. I can get them in T-Edit, but they do spread the corruption, so I don't want to. If I were to use jungle grass, the jungle thorns only grow underground, so I can't really get those here either. So instead, I'm just going to be building my own style of thorns, which I personally think will end up looking even better. Imitation vile mushrooms will be pretty simple. I could just use purple paint on green and teal mushrooms. It's not perfect, but it's not bad either. With the block choices in place, let's get to building. Let's get started by sculpting out the pit. I've had a few people in the comments ask how I'm able to easily break walls with the drill containment unit. When you left click using the mount, the blocks will break, as you all know. To break walls, however, you just right click. If you hold both mouse buttons at the same time, the mount will destroy both blocks and walls. Hopefully that answers that and helps you all out. Once the chasm is shaped, I'll start by swapping out blocks with Desert Fossil. I'm going to try and go for a mostly vanilla look for this build with a few unique twists. I don't want to go too crazy with redesigning the corruption because I'm going to be doing that heavily when I build my own totally custom world. With the blocks in place, it's time to move on to the walls. It's much easier to do than the blocks were. I can use safe versions of all of the corruption walls as they don't spread the evil biome to nearby blocks, unlike the unsafe walls which can. The chasm will be mostly ebonstone wall. I've always thought that the corrupt pustule walls would look really interesting in here. Normally you can only see them in hard mode after the corruption spreads and corrupts stone walls underground, but in this case I thought it would be fun to weave the pustule around, twisting it through the chasm. Moving up to the surface, after painting the grass, it's time to build a couple of custom trees. I did consider building trees that more closely represent the natural ones that you find in Terraria. It's easy enough to achieve, as you just need leaf blocks, fences, and platforms. But I felt I wanted to take this build up a notch, so today I'll be building some gray and purple willow type trees. I don't want to make them too lush, because I imagine that any trees growing in this biome would be a bit twisted and sickly. I also had an idea at the last moment for these, and I thought it would be fun to have an Eater of Worlds inspiration within them. So I'm going to hammer a few random shapes through the center of the trees and place corrupt pustule walls behind them. The green dots created from that wall is meant to somewhat represent the eyes that you would see through the Eater of Worlds. I'm not sure if it quite comes off that way, but I'm pretty happy with the trees either way. Next, I'm going to work on the thorns, so I'm going to dig a couple of smaller corruption pits to the left and right of the large one, and building some thorns into them using living rich mahogany. They're even lethal as they have wooden spikes on the tips. Next, I'll wrap up the area by adding some bushes out of living leaf wall, and I'll toss down some mushrooms and strange plants. Down below ground, I'll quickly add some ashwood lamps, candelabras, and lanterns, as well as some water features. Here's the corruption mostly done. There are a few things that I want to do, but let's save those for a bit later in the video. All in all, I think I've managed to capture the corruption feel fairly well, despite it actually being a forest biome. Underground, I went into Tiedit and I placed some demon altars and corrupt orbs. The biome simply wouldn't feel right without them in it, and since I have no way of adding them in-game, I thought I'd use Tiedit to achieve the desired goal. They don't spread the corruption, so they're safe to add. There's just one thing that feels off. The forest is so bright. The corruption is not. I think I have just the idea of how I can address that. I can place down a tombstone. As more tombstones are placed within the area, the screen gets a little bit darker and less saturated. If you keep going, some fog even starts to appear. While the standard corruption doesn't have fog in it, it does have a lot of dust particles flying around that I can't get here, but I feel like if I make a graveyard mini biome, the less saturated area plus the fog will better fit the corruption. The desert fossil looks even more like ebonstone this way, and the fog feels like it fits quite well. There are a couple of other things that I want to do for this, but I'll save them for the final look. For now, let's see how I plan on replicating the crimson. In the top comment, Benny requested that instead of having a cave entrance for the crimson, that there's a suspicious little hut that has a hidden crimson area beneath it. So on the surface, there isn't going to be any crimson at all. Everything evil will be underground. That said, I want to use trees and grass within this build, even if they're only underground. Similar to the corruption, I will be building a custom tree. In terms of grass, when I paint all of these safe grasses red, I find that the hallowed grass is the closest fit in color to the standard crimson grass, but again, it sparkles when it's in light, and I find that just too distracting for an evil biome. So I think once again, I'll just be going with normal grass painted red. As for making the imitation crimstone, after a lot of experimentation, I think I personally like granite block the most when it's painted red. Honestly, I kind of like it even more than crimstone itself, so that's what we're going with today. Same as with the corruption, I'll be building custom thorns. Now, the crimson is a biome of living flesh, so I've always imagined it would look a bit more gory than it does. I'm thinking of using flesh block to make piles of flesh, as well as painted ice to make tendons. I'll also use bone blocks to make teeth or bones. And of course, the entire cave should be dripping in blood, so I'll be using plenty of water and water droppers with a blood fountain. All of this talk about blocks and biomes has really amped me up for building my fully custom world. I recently started it, but it's going to be a really long project as I'm building every inch of the world myself. So if you're excited for the custom world as well, and you would like to be sure to catch that video when it eventually comes out, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you'd like to get the occasional behind the scenes image or progress images of the world, or if you'd like to participate in the polls that help shape my decisions for building that custom world, please consider checking out my Patreon account. You gain access to my private Discord server where all of the polls and images happen, and you can chat with me directly. I also offer plenty of other rewards on Patreon, including access to my world saves, though the custom world is going to be available for the entire public for free when it's done. Don't worry. Becoming a YouTube member will also give you access to those rewards, and you'll get a badge next to your name and access to channel emotes for your commenting pleasure. Thank you everybody who helped support this channel. Now let's get to building the Crimson. When it comes to the Crimson, the request was to build a small suspicious looking shack that has a hidden Crimson cult beneath it. So unlike the corruption side of today's video, the Crimson side is going to not at all look like the vanilla world generation. The surface will just be a forest, because I feel like there's little point to a hidden Crimson cult if the Crimson has already spread everywhere. So the surface is just going to be nice and peaceful looking, with a dark secret below. After I have the foundation for the house built, I'll get to building the hut itself. I'm going with crimstone brick, which I will blend stone and green dungeon brick into. Ashwood, large bamboo, and living wood will make up support beams throughout the build. The roof is going to be thatch, which I'm going to pull off with some brown painted leaves. While I am a huge fan of living leaf wall, I don't feel that it matches the leaf block texture well enough. So when it comes to placing background walls in the ceiling, I'm actually going to be using corrupt tendril painted brown. It looks a bit more leafy to me, though I do poke a few patches of living leaf at random points on the outside of the roof so that it looks a bit more rough. Next, I want a chimney that produces smoke, but I don't want it to look the way that the chimney usually does. So I'm going to be building a platform above where I'll be placing a fireplace and place a chimney on top of that. Activating it one time with a switch will allow it to produce the smoke particles. Now I can remove any unnecessary blocks and echo coat the rest, including the chimney, hiding it completely. My custom chimney will instead be built using entirely large bamboo that is painted white. This wall looks very much like a pipe when you reduce the wall to 1 block in width. In order to do that, I line the large bamboo with echo walls. Now the smoke will come straight out the top of the pipe. After that's done, I quickly add walls to the hut using rich mahogany and shadewood fence, crimstone, green slab, ashwood, and ebonwood fence. Finally, some quick decorations using blue dungeon furniture, cobwebs, a few other miscellaneous decorative pieces, and most importantly, the fireplace. This is going to be the secret entrance to the Crimson Cult. I'll be pulling that off with a teleporter that's hidden in the foundation beneath the fireplace. Lastly, I'll touch up the forest with a few strange plants and living leaf wall bushes. So here's the finished hut, which I'm quite happy with. Now it's time to work on the hidden underground Crimson. Let's just climb through the fireplace entrance, and as you can see, this area hasn't even been started yet. It's a bit too dark right now, so I'm going to quickly shape the cave and remove all the background walls before we jump into the next time lapse. I was starting to carve out the next area, then I hit a pyramid. Here's the thing though, I was checking this world out earlier when deciding where I wanted to build my Crimson. I had considered building it in the underground desert, and I had found a pyramid just over here. So there are actually 2 pyramids in this world, in the same desert. Over all of my years in Terraria, I almost never see double pyramids, but this is the second time I've gotten them in the past month. Has their spawn rate increased? I'm not sure. Also, have you ever seen a pyramid generate below an oasis like this? I've never found anything quite like it. Anyway, that's not the point of this video, but I did find it an interesting diversion. Let me just finish shaping the cave. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to get the red painted granite in. There's a lot of blocks to swap in, but luckily for you, time lapses exist. Once they're all in, I'll build a small entrance which connects to the teleporter in the hut. With that done, I'll add some dirt and grass in, as I'm going to eventually add some thorns and a tree. In the center of the cave is a tall pillar. On top of this, I will eventually place an altar that the Crimson cultists would sacrifice and worship at. For now, however, I want to build some fleshy growths that are coming out of the fake Crimstone. Obviously, this is accomplished with flesh block, which I painted red because it gets rid of the little purple and other colors that feel a little off. Then I carved some openings into the growths and used several single tiles of bone block shaped into slopes to give them spiky teeth, with a couple of holes that have shadow painted walls for eyes. I also give a couple of the ones on the ceiling waterfalls. When I finally get around to adding the blood water fountains, it should look quite fitting. With those done, I'm going to build a thorn bush to the left of the altar pillar. Same as the ones I built in the corruption, this is done using living rich mahogany and wooden spikes. When that is done, I build a tiny sickly tree off to the right patch of grass using more rich mahogany and corrupted tendril walls with several strings of flesh block hanging off of it. It's meant to look similar to the corruption versions, but a little bit more sickly since it's hidden underground. Next, I'm going to make strings of tendons that are spreading throughout the cave, almost like a spider web. Typically for this, I would use red ice, but since I don't actually want a crimson biome to be present, I decided on pink ice with red paint. This will create a halo biome, but since you can live within the halo and you won't be able to actually see the background at all when the build is done, I'm okay with the biome change. With the tendons done, I wanted to move on to the walls. At first, I was going to use Crimstone Wall, which is obviously what you would find in the underground Crimson. But honestly, I feel like Crimson Scab Wall fits far more than the normal wall does. On top of that, you can make pockets of Crimson Teeth and Crimson Blister walls to add even more variety and texture to the background that simply doesn't blend as well with the standard Crimstone Wall. You might disagree with this decision in the long term, but personally I really like it, and I wouldn't mind if naturally generated Crimson Caves used these on occasion. With all of the walls in place, I'll add more atmosphere with hidden blood water fountains, magic water droppers, smoke blocks underneath the waterfalls, and echo-coated fog machines over the water. You won't be able to see the fog in the time-lapse because the camera account can't see the fog when it's tabbed out, but you'll see that in a moment. Before getting to that, I wanted to quickly add a rope bridge, which is made using ashwood platforms, large bamboo wall, and silk ropes that will be leading from the cave entrance to the sacrificial pillar. Just feel like adding a last few pieces of rope to the bridge to make it a little bit more interesting. Then let's talk about that pillar in the middle. The flesh bath is essentially just a stone tub full of blood that is trickling out from the sides, or at least I think that's what they were going for. But whenever I see it, I always think of it as a slab of stone or a table with blood dripping off of it. So it feels like a perfect fit for a sacrificial altar. Now obviously, I'm not going to be keeping the torches in this cave. They were just present so you could actually see what I was building. Once I get rid of all of them, obviously the cave will be pitch black, which would be normal for the Crimson, but I feel like I want to give it some faint light. To do this, I'm going to use glowing mushrooms. Unlike any other light source in the game, when you paint a glowing mushroom, the color of the light changes to match the color of the paint that you used. As you can see here, it's glowing red, not purple like you would normally expect. This is a little oversaturated for me, however, so it's not the color I'll be using. I'm actually going to be using gray, black, and shadow paint. When you use white, gray, black, and shadow paints on glowing mushrooms, the light that the block produces is all the same color, but the intensity of that light changes depending on the paint used. Gray is not too bright, but not too dark. If I wanted an extremely faint light, I use some shadow paint. It might be a bit hard to see, but this is actually producing light. You can see some details in the area still. If I break the blocks, you'll see that it goes pitch black. In fact, as far as I'm aware, shadow painted glowing mushroom is the faintest light that you're able to build with in Terraria. Black paint is somewhere between the gray and the shadow. So my plan is to use a blend of these three colors to achieve the lighting that I want throughout the cave. It's going to take a bit of trial and error, and it'll probably take me quite a bit of time to do that, so I'll do it off camera. I also need to hop into T-Edit and place a demon heart. I'm also going to consider if I want to use the graveyard technique that I used for the corruption. You'll find out in the final look. And here we are, completely safe and habitable Crimson and Corruption biomes. Let's just hop into the hidden entrance and take a look at the final version of the cave. I wanted it to be fairly dim in here, and I think the vibe fits perfectly. I'm also quite pleased with the demon heart sitting on top of the altar. I did place down some tombstones, but not enough to get the ecto mist, as I think the desaturation fits the corruption more than it does the crimson. So we're somewhere between a graveyard and not a graveyard. I made some slight changes to the corruption as well, so let's swing over and take a look. And here's the final version of the habitable corruption biome. Down the hole. Okay, it is a bit dark down here. Let me just grab my helmet. There we go. As you can see, I've added some legion block growths to the pit to somewhat complement the versions that I made in the Crimson. Thank you, Benny, for your awesome suggestion. I had a lot of fun challenging myself with it. And I hope you all like the builds as well. Don't forget to leave a comment with your build recommendations or vote on comments that you would like to see in next month's Commenter Day. If you enjoyed this video and you want to help to tell the YouTube algorithm that you enjoyed it and get it promoted to more people, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Be sure to check out my channel artist, MythicalWater, linked in the description below. Thank you all very much for watching. Be back soon with a new video. Happy building.